Hi, I'm Carlin Borisenko. In early 2020, I was the knitting Democrat who accidentally went viral on the internet for going to a Trump rally and then left the party. I became the conservative darling, was on all the shows, traveled around the country, and then realized that conservatives were no better than Democrats. If there's one thing that I've learned, it's that both political tribes are two sides of the same coin. But it wasn't all bad. On my journey, I became obsessed with understanding the woke ideology and the culture war. I broke the story of the city of Seattle doing segregated training with its employees.
How bad has this stuff become? The city of Seattle has now put out, I'm not kidding you, this is according to Dr. Carolyn Borisenko, who's an organizational psychologist. The city of Seattle asked its white employees to voluntarily spend a day off in a training about their internalized racial superiority.
I broke the story that led to the first ever federal lawsuit against critical race theory in the schools. I broke the Coke Be Less White story, one of the biggest anti-woke stories of all time. It got over 30 million views. Coca-Cola's corporate headquarters even had to change their outgoing voicemail.
Throughout the past few days, you may have seen inaccurate reporting on the content of our recently launched diversity, equity, and inclusion training program.
I exposed the schools in Burlington, Vermont for grooming middle school children live on the internet. They called me an unwoke cult leader for that. And the Vermont Human Rights Commission slandered me publicly as being a hate channel. I even got called a hero in Breitbart for exposing that the Washington Post was writing a hit piece on Christopher Rufo. I have broken story after story after story about what's going on in the public schools, from Cambridge, Massachusetts, to autistic sex education, to the Department of Education in Michigan, literally training teachers all over the state how to groom children. I wrote a book called Actively Unwoke, the ultimate guide for fighting back against the woke insanity in your life. I host a podcast all about fighting back, and I'm downloading all of my knowledge to you on my Substack, carlin.substack.com. The world is a crazy place. We are literally surrounded by cults on all sides. On this show, we're going to do a deep dive into all aspects of the culture war, and I will show you the dark, dystopian underbellies on both sides. Here are the commitments I'll make to you. I will always tell you the truth. I will always bring you receipts. And if you stick with me, I promise you will see the world differently. Welcome to the cult. Please mount that like button for me and subscribe if you feel so inclined. Well, hey, everyone. Happy Thursday? Is it Thursday? It's Thursday, right? I'm not just making that up. I'm pretty sure it's Thursday. I really am. Oh, it is Thursday. Oh, good. Oh, good. I really, in my head, I was going back and forth. I was like, is it Wednesday or Thursday? Excellent. I'm on the right day. Welcome to The Cult. The Cult is a show that I do at 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, where we talk about all elements of the culture war, but with a heavy emphasis on all the crazy things going on the left, because the left are the ones in control. The left are the ones causing all the problems. The left are the ones that are most dangerous. And so we want to focus on what they're doing so we know what to expect next. And I have to tell you guys, I'm very excited about today's training that we're going to be watching. Let me take you back to yesterday. Who was here yesterday? Let me take you back to yesterday. Yesterday, we watched this training called Meeting the Moment, Ensuring Safety and Educational Equity for Gender Diverse Students. Now, when I selected this training, I knew that it was targeted at teachers in Southern California. And I was interested in it because we had just done a spy stream funded by the government of Orange County, California, not too long ago. And this training took place in Orange County. And so I was like, okay, let's look at some more crazy things that are going on in Orange County. That's fine. Now, what I didn't realize when I picked this, though I realized it very quickly after it started because they literally said it, this is a federally funded training. So they actually announced at the beginning of the training that this was because they had federal funding. And then, of course, my ears really start to perk up then. This is a federally funded training. Excuse me, what? So I started to, and they said some crazy things in this training. If you guys didn't see the article that I posted on the Substack today and the thread I posted on the Twitters, they said a lot of crazy things in this training. And actually, I haven't even finished clipping all of the crazy things that they said in this training. But the main one, the craziest one, is that a federally funded trainer told a group of teachers and school psychologists and administrators that if a student walks into a classroom in school and says there's only 2 genders, then that student is guilty of intimidation and bullying and harassment, and the teachers need to intervene to correct the student or re-educate the student. They also strongly recommended that all gendered language be eliminated, to include eliminating boys and girls, mom and dad, and even homecoming king and queen, because we don't want kings and queens anymore. And even that, we don't even want there to be a ranking system in the royal court anymore. We want there to be everyone on the same level. So saying just a royal court instead of kings and queens. Now, there was other crazy stuff too, but that was where I wanted to start in terms of breaking down this training. When I say federally funded, I mean the US government. And I'm going to show this. So here is what I did after I realized this training was federally funded. So this training was put on by this thing called the mental, and you can see it. It's right there. This is the training. This is on their homepage. Tools to support equity and mental health for gender diverse students. By the way, I have all the documents they're giving the schools because I was going through all this stuff last night. So this training was hosted by the Mental Health Technology Transfer Center Network. Has anyone ever heard of the Mental Health Technology Transfer Center Network? No, me neither. I had never heard of it either. And I think that we may, and I'm being serious when I say this, I think that we may have stumbled accidentally into how the federal government is funding gender ideology training in schools. I think we found it. Because I'll tell you what, guys, like I went down a whole rabbit hole last night, and I'm going to give you a little bit of this rabbit hole, but this rabbit hole goes deep. And it's all federal funding. So, what these people do, exactly, Maldi, exactly. They're using third parties. So what these people do is they hire out to, they have 10 regional centers across the United States. This particular training took place in the Pacific Southwest. Hang on one sec. Sorry. This particular training took place in the Pacific Southwest region. The Pacific Southwest region includes Arizona, California, Hawaii, Nevada, U.S. Pacific Islands of American Samoa, Guam, Marshall Islands, Northern Mariana Islands, the Federated States of Micronesia. I don't know the rest of them, but anyway. So this is in the Southwest the Southwest United States, basically. There are also all sorts of other regions. You can see them right here. Hang on. You can see them right here, all over the country and even in the Caribbean, that are doing this type of training, right? So we found one training from one regional center. The reason that I know that they're staffing this training out is because I found the Instagram of one of the trainers. The woman in green, You'll see her standing in the back here. Her name is Lindsay. And Lindsay posted on her Instagram on September 13th, 2023, great IDSP training today. Way to show up, SAUSD staff. SAUSD stands for Santa Ana Unified School District. So we now know that this training took place specifically on September 13th or September 12th. Like, I think it was on September 12th, and they posted this the next day in the Santa Ana Unified School District in Southern California, essentially. Stony Baloney, it's the underground queer railroad. Well, you're not kidding, Stony Baloney. Let me show you guys this. Okay. So I started here. I started with the Pacific Southwest MHTTC. Right here it says Pacific Southwest MHTTC serves the priorities of SAMHSA. That stands for, you can see it in their logo up here, and I know it's a little bit small, funded by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. Has anyone ever heard of the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration? No? No one's ever heard of that? Based on the name alone, we can make an assessment that they're using resources that are allocated for substance abuse and mental health services in order to fund gender ideology training in schools, which is a whole separate problem. So we haven't heard of this, so I hadn't heard of it either, so I Googled it. The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration is a branch of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. This is part of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. And this is what is funding the training that we watched yesterday. So all of this is funded by the federal government. Now, it gets better. Because I then started going down the rabbit hole of what other crazy things are they funding through this? And I'm not ready to tell you guys about it yet because there's a lot, but they're funding some crazy shit through this. They're funding some crazy gender shit through this. Like, I'm not kidding when I say maybe I'm going to set up a whole project in the Discord for this, because like this on its own, it's already like massive spider web of nonsense. And it's all coming out of these federal government agencies. I have some good news. So do you guys remember, for those who were here yesterday, do you guys remember that at the end of this training yesterday, Lindsay was like, we have to end the training because I can see our panelists are coming in. I can see our panelists are arriving. And I was like, what panel? What are you talking about, Lindsay? It doesn't seem as though there's enough time left in this video for a whole teacher panel. Do you guys remember that? Well, if I go to their YouTube page, which is where we found this training with only 21 views, there doesn't look like there's a part 2 of that training, does there? For some reason, the federally funded government YouTube page left off the second part of that training. Does that seem suspicious to anyone else? It sure did seem suspicious to me. But I have some good news. I'm about to deliver you guys a gift that I think we're all going to be able to enjoy. Because in my rummaging in the bowels of this website last night, I found the secret unlisted link to part 2 with the teacher panel of this training. And you can see right here, unlisted, not available on their YouTube channel for some strange reason. I can't imagine why that is. Now, before anyone says anything, of course, I already downloaded it. So even if they pull it and I screenshotted everything just to make sure it's all nice and all the data is collected, I can't imagine why they wouldn't want us to see this. I can't imagine why they would be hiding the secret link to this training in some random document that I came across at around 2 a.m. I can't imagine. But exactly, Stony Baloney, exactly. Why don't we find out what exactly they're hiding? As you can see, this video only has 11 views on it, and at least 2 of them are mine. Oh, the federal government. Oh, the federal government. Always trying to get away with something. Tolkien Fan! Thank you, Tolkien Fan. I really do appreciate it. Tolkien Fan says, may this go towards more investigative journalism and help you to expose more of this Marxist training. It saddens me to see our society so corrupt from the inside. Many blessings to me. Thank you, Tolkien Fan. I really do appreciate it. All right. So we're going to watch this training and we're going to see what they talked about. And that's what we're doing today, guys. But before we get into that, I do have a couple other orders of business. Now, if you want to fund independent journalism, just like Tolkien Fan here, of course, you can send in super chats. And I love super chats. I do. But do you know what I love? Just a little bit more, just slightly more. I love it when people subscribe to my Substack for $8 a month or $80 a year. The reason that I like subscriptions on my Substack more is that when you make a recurring donation of $8 a month or $80 for the year, that allows me to know how much money I have to work with in the pot of resources to do investigative journalism, to do undercover journalism and stuff like that. So it really allows me to do a lot of planning. It also allows me to, quite frankly, have a lot of peace of mind to know that I already have things covered and that I know how much money is coming in and I don't have to worry. Am I going to get a big donation this month? Am I going to get a lot of super chats? Am I going to get no super chats? What's going to happen? I don't know. So the recurring donations make it a lot more predictable for me to be able to assess what I have to work with and to be able to allocate resources. Now, I'm going to tell you guys, I think I'm going to start doing a membership drive on my Substack because there is a goal. It's a little audacious, but there is a goal. I played a game called Fun with Math a couple weeks ago. And in my game of Fun with Math, I came up with a number. And that number is 400. Okay, so what I want to do this year is one of the things I want to do is to be able to basically do a metric ton of undercover journalism. I want to be able to go undercover to events. Okay. Because I got my hands on a really massive conference list. All the dates are starting to be released about all of these super woke conferences, and there are a lot of them. And I want to be able to fund undercover journalism, and that requires money. That's just the way it goes. It requires travel expenses. It requires hotels. It requires registrations. It requires fake IDs, which of course I would never get a fake ID. That would never happen because I always go by my real name when I'm registering for woke events. But maybe sometimes I don't. And maybe sometimes it would be better to have. Anyway, you guys get the picture. There's stuff I got to pay for in order to do undercover journalism. All of that comes out of my Substack. Okay. I played a little game called Fun with Math. And the number that I came up with is I need 400 new paying supporters on my Substack, either with monthly donations or with annual donations, to be able to have a really nice little pot of money to be able to dedicate to doing the undercover journalism that I want to do. And that's just reality. And like once I have that, and this is why I love recurring donations, it's one of those things that if I find a woke conference like a week ahead of time and I'm like, oh my God, I just found out about this, I'm going to be able to get on a plane and go. That's what I want. That is ultimately what I want, to be able to have the flexibility to do that so I don't have to plan months ahead of time to make sure I have everything covered, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. how you guys can help me out is that if you are not yet a member on my Substack, please sign up. Please fund the work I'm doing. Because if people don't fund this type of journalism, it just doesn't get done. And then we don't have this evidence and we don't have these recordings and we don't have the things we need to show people what's going on. And so I promise to be a good steward of your dollar. I've always reported back to you guys. I've always said, here's what we're working on. Here's the outcome of it. I've released I've already released a whole bunch of original journalism this year, and we just started February. So you guys are going to get results one way or the other. And this is entirely funded by you. And I would really, 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 it's an audacious number. I know it's an audacious number. It's a lot. But I would really like to hit that number. Oh, God, it would be so great if we could hit it by my birthday. That would be an awesome birthday present. And the only way that happens is if people who are not yet members, make sure you sign up on the Substack for monthly or annual memberships, and you're going to be funding all of this, and you're going to get access to a whole bunch of perks as well. And I really appreciate it. And this is like, we were the only ones to find this training. And that's true a lot of the time. Without just being able to have the time to sit here and go through file after file and then watch them on the internet and then cut them up and clip them and all this stuff. Like, this stuff just doesn't get done. And then the federal government gets away with funding Marxism in your kids' schools. All right. So if you guys can help me out, I really, really appreciate it. Another way that you can help me out is, of course, if you want to make a one-time gift to support my work, you can head over to my main website, which is activelyunwoke.com. /support, and you can make a one-time gift there, which I really do appreciate as well. And of course, you can head over to the Unwoke art store, where we've got a new limited edition merch today. Of course, it is the beginning of the month. That means we're rolling over some merch in the store. Now, you can still get the Trump Valentine's Day special, grab me by the heart mug or teddy bear or wrapping paper or Valentine's Day cards or balloons or whatever. You can still get this one for a couple more days. This is going to be in the store through February 3rd, and then I've got to take it down because I want to make sure you have enough time to actually get it shipped to you. So that's going to be in the store for a couple more days. But the new design that I launched is the new Unwoke Wiki design, because every single month I'm creating a new design for the Unwoke Wiki logo so that we can have a different plague doctor, because it's just kind of cool. And there's so much cool plague doctor like stuff. And look at this. We've already got our first purchase of the new Plague Doctor t-shirt. I gotta tell you guys, I love this one. I love it. It's dreamy, it's surreal, it's the Plague Doctor looking sinister, but the Plague Doctor's covered in flowers, and then there's a space background, and then there's more flowers. I wanted to have something colorful this month. We had a black and white version last month, which looks sick, it looks cool, but I wanted to have something kind of like colorful and a little bit more, maybe a little bit more feminine this month for the ladies, but I think it looks cool. I'm really excited about it. It's got the Plague Doctor design on the front, and then it's got the Socialist Revolution is real on the back. I'm going to be doing a massive update to the Unwoke Wiki tonight. I wanted to do it last night, but then I got caught up doing this training stuff, so I had to work on that because that was more time sensitive. We're going to be doing a massive update to the Unwoke Wiki tonight, which is going to be great. And this, of course, does go to fund that project, which the Unwoke Wiki is about cataloging all this information, making it publicly accessible. We are quite literally making a list, making many lists, documenting the socialist revolution. And that's another thing you can fund when you buy that merch from my store, because all that stuff goes specifically to the Unwoke Wiki project. You can get hoodies, you can get stickers, all sorts of other stuff too. And I'm going to have more designs coming in the next couple days, so keep an eye out for that as well. All right, guys, who is ready to mount the like button? Where it is, there it is. Who's ready to mount the like button and watch the secret unlisted training that the Department of Health and Human Services doesn't want you to see? Go ahead and mount the like button for me if you would be so kind. What is my opinion on a bill about making, it's tough, right? Because I don't think it's correct to use someone's face to make like porn out of, basically. That just seems like a real violation to me. At the same time, I think that it could go too far, which makes me nervous. My preference would be to maybe stop making fake porn of people. Maybe just don't do that. Maybe don't be a dick. I mean, I don't know. I'd have to actually think about it more. But anyway, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think there could be like overreach very, very easily. I think it's one of those things that like people should just voluntarily not be a dick. That would be my preference. I know that's asking way too much, but that is my preference. I don't like I want to abolish the federal government, right? So I don't think there's much I don't like regulating things as a general rule. I'm usually against it. Anyway, that's a different conversation for another day. Everyone, please make sure you mount the like button for me. Let's go inside the employee or the teacher panel, I guess, of this presentation and see what happened. And that is not even set up correctly. You're not going to be able to hear the sound on that. Hang on. It's because I'm wearing sunglasses. That's why. Nope. Not right. Hang on. Wrong window. Too many tabs open on my desktop. That one. There we go. All right. Let's get this party started, guys. I just want to go back to this disclaimer. Hang on. Because this does actually say in it the Department of Health and Human Services. I just didn't see it the first time we watched this. This project, hang on, let's just read this whole disclaimer. This presentation was prepared for the Pacific Southwest Mental Health Transfer Technology Center under a cooperative agreement from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. All materials appearing in this presentation, except that taken directly from copyrighted sources, is public domain and may be reproduced or copied without permission. Oh, thank you, federal government. That's very, very nice of you. Citation of the source is appreciated. I'm more than happy to cite the source. Do not reproduce or distribute the presentation for a fee without specific written authorization. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, whatever. This project has a timeline running from 2019 to 2003. So what this means, guys, this started in 2019. Whose presidency did this start under? I thought it was Obama yesterday because they said it was 9 years, and I did some fun with math, and I was like, okay, Obama was president 9 years ago. But now I'm seeing that the disclaimer is saying that this started in 2019. Who was president in 2019? Remind me. Was that Trump? That was Trump. This started under Trump. Uh-oh. And is supported by the SAMHSA of the United States Department of Health and Human Services as part of the Financial Assistance Award SU 17-002. Can someone look that up? What is the Financial Assistance Award SU 17-002? I'll look it up later too if no one wants to, but if someone wants to look that up, that'd be great. At the time of the presentation, Miriam Delphin Retmon served as the Assistant Secretary for Mental Health and Substance Use and Administrator of the organization. I don't know who that is, but maybe we can look her up too. Bot, you found it. Thank you. The opinions expressed herein are the views of the speakers and do not reflect the official position. Well, no official support or endorsement or opinions described in this presentation is to be inferred. Well, they're still funding it though, aren't they? So are you telling me the federal government is funding training that does not align with their official position? Does that sound accurate to anyone else? Why, if it doesn't align with your official position, then why are we funding it? Why are we paying for it if it doesn't align with your official position? Because it's called plausible deniability. Exactly. So apparently the planning and development infrastructure to improve the mental health and wellness of children, youth, and families are you effing kidding me? So they're taking from this fund, which is supposed to be for families of American Indians, Alaska Natives, and they're using it to fund gender diversity training in public school. This is so crazy. Anyway, let's just dig into the training. Yeah, exactly. Exactly, Stony Baloney. Exactly. The government wants oversights over your kids, but can't implement oversights over the people that they are paying to train the teachers that teach in the public schools. That's effed up. Yes, but under which president? Who appointed her? Under which president? Look, all over the country. All over the country. No cost training, you don't say, because we're paying for it. Yep, they're diverting funds from American Indians to pay for this. Yep. Okay, hang on. Our panelists. Uh, we've got a they, them. We've got two they, thems. Program coordinator and community education specialist, gender diversity program, UCI Department of Pediatrics. Oh, good. We have another they, them, lead clinician in Orange County. Great. And then we have a she, her, parent of a transgender child. So then Obama would have been the one who appointed her then if it was in 2014.
I'm so thrilled and honored and grateful to get to introduce you to some colleagues of ours, Brit Cervantes.
They, them, pronoun, they, them.
They, them, he, them from UCI. And yes.
She, her.
Crystal is here in several different capacities. Was a former district administrator, now is at WestEd, also as a child.
Give us that perspective today. And then Cleo Ubre, they, them, she, her, lead clinician at APAIT, also a community educator
They, them.
at the OC Jail and OC Sheriff's Department. And then you remember Heidi. Heidi was here earlier. All right, so we'll get started. Thank you so much. Thank you all so much for joining us. It's such a privilege to have you here. I just wanted to get started, giving you the chance to kind of say hello and to everybody and introduce yourself a little bit. But also, we're here today talking about basically the experience of transgender and gender diverse students in school. And want to kind of get your thoughts on that. I know you all have different experiences from which to speak from, but if you could kind of just say a couple things about that for our group, we can just start there. Do you want to start since you're right here next to me?
So again, my name is Brit, and from a professional capacity, I am the program coordinator and community education specialist for the UCI Gender Diversity Program. Our program started in October of 2016. I've been with the program since it started.
Does anyone know what UCI is? Is it like University of California Irvine? Could that be it? Can someone look that up?
And we have been and continue to be the only program that is completely dedicated to providing care for transgender and non-binary folks. We have loved to see the growth and other healthcare facilities expanding on offering hormone replacement therapy, but we're just the only ones here that's all we do. That's the only population that we serve. We provide services like hormone replacement therapy, puberty suppression, as well as sexual health education.
So the University of California, Irvine has a whole gender diversity program where they're supplying gender hormones and all that stuff. Oh, that's good to know. Thank you, University of California.
HIV prevention. My role with the program is really just to help patients and their families as they're navigating their social, legal, and medical transitions. And I do so from the perspective of my personal identity as a transgender and non-binary person. And I myself have navigated transitioning socially, legally, and medically. And so a lot of the support and services that I offer to patients and our family come from being a person that struggled as a young queer trans person in South Orange County. I did not have a very good experience with school. And as an adult, I've really just made it my mission to be that adult and be that person that I needed when I was younger. And I do a lot of community education in the sense that I am working with the School of Medicine at UCI, the School of Nursing, to train future and current medical professionals on how to provide gender-affirming care, as well as doing a lot of community panels like this, where I get to work directly with the folks that are providing support and services to transgender and non-binary young people in schools, just because it's just a personal passion of mine. And thank you for being here and listening.
My name is Crystal Diaz, and I get to share today about my experiences as a mom of a beautiful son who is transgender. My son, Kay, came out to me when he was 10 years old, and I would say that there was a lot of fear.
Yeah,
I get teary-eyed, so I excuse the tears that come from a place of love. There was a lot of fear. Just, will my kid be accepted? How will we explain this to Grandpa, Nana, and Tata? Is this real?
no, not real.
COVID was happening not too long afterwards. How is that going to affect them? Are they feeling isolated? So forth and so on. So with a lot of support, reaching out to communities like the LGBTQ Center and therapists, we really realized this is real. And this is something that we needed to love and support our kiddo through. So we made the decision to start a new middle school with and give Kay an opportunity to identify as their true self, their authentic self. And I remember going through that experience, and there was a suggestion, reaching out to the principal and letting them know what was going on. And I feel like we got lucky in a lot of ways. The principal was very caring and immediately set up a meeting with us, and we talked through our needs. We didn't do a formal identity support plan. I don't think the principal even knew that was available to them, but in a lot of ways they did that, right? They sat with us and they just showed us that they cared. And they also gave us a little bit of misinformation sometimes as well. I remember Kay asking, is it okay if we change my name, my email to reflect my name? And they said, no, we can't do that. So school went by, we started off, and their email had their dead name. And I was noticing that Kay wasn't participating in their group project, and it was because they didn't want other kids to see their email. They didn't want to email their teachers and ask questions. And then I realized, something's wrong there. So I reached out again to the LGBTQ Center, and they said, no, actually, you can request, a name change. So I went back to the school with this new information, and it took a couple of weeks, but then they got us what we needed. So I had to advocate for my kid. And they didn't know. They were good people doing the wrong things. And there's a lot of the misinformation out there. So it took me as a parent to be able to do that for my kid. And
I have the documents for the identity support plan, and they have a specific identity support plan that starts in elementary school. They've got one for elementary school, and they've got one for middle and high school.
I find it really hard to imagine a kid that doesn't have me as their parent trying to do this alone. So it's really important, I think, about how important it is to make sure that kids just have systems in place already that make them feel loved and cared for, that they don't have to just be lucky. As now my kids first year freshman in high school now. And we had to go through this again, right? Starting in new high school, kind of like that fear of we were comfortable in the middle school, everything was going well. Now we have to start a new system and a new place. And you just go through that process again. And those fears and those anxieties come up again. And this time we had an identity support plan, the high school knew what to do. And it just created a different way of being, and it just felt more comfortable. And now we knew what to ask for as well. So as a parent, I think about, how do we help our kids, and then how do we help families as well. So thank you for being here today and listening.
Everyone, my name is Brit. My pronouns are they, them, their, she, or hers. And I work in the community center called APAT down in Garden Road. And I primarily work with adults at the clinical level. And so I don't see too many kiddos. I see them when they're in their adulthood. And so I kind of have seen, some of the ways in which they have been brought up, the circles that they have lived in for a while. And they kind of come to me, unfortunately, when they've experienced trauma or violence, homelessness, or in the jail, incarceration. So I'm kind of seeing the latter stages of what happens when folks.
Guys, please don't do this. Please don't do this. I do not like when people purposefully misgender, because every single thing you guys say in the chat can reflect on me. And I don't care if people are trans. I don't care if adults are trans. And I don't want to get put on any fucking hate list because you guys are dicking around in my chat. Please do not do this. It is unnecessary. It changes no one's mind. It actually turns people who could be on our side against us. Please stop. You're welcome to have whatever opinion you want, but I'm not going to be saddled with your opinion because you put it in my chat.
Aren't supported in the circles that they need to be, whether at home or in school. So that's pretty much where my perspective is going to be today. So thank y'all.
Thanks, everybody. And so we gave our folks here an opportunity to submit some questions ahead of time. Brit, you said something earlier about wanting to be that adult that you needed when you were younger. And I think the folks that are here would want to be that adult for our kids. So maybe you can give us a sense of some things that help, some things that hurt, some things that would have been helpful. And then also, each of you actually, and then also, I think there's sometimes, like Crystal mentioned, where somebody tries to help, but it actually doesn't really help. So can you speak to that?
Yeah. So in terms of, I have two clear examples, or a clear example of something that hurt and somebody that helped. When it came to the teacher that hurt, I was 16 when I started dating girls, and at that time I was considered a girl that liked girls. And I had shared with some friends that I was dating a girl, and folks that I thought were friends ended up sharing that with other people, and I was outed. There was a teacher that had found out about this, and she just kind of joined along with the other students in bullying me, in making comments and saying things. And her and her husband her husband was involved with the school as well, said a lot of really homophobic things about the person that I was dating. And at that time, I didn't know that what I was experiencing was a lot of anxiety and depression, and I didn't really have very accepting parents, or at that time, my parents weren't accepting. And me being outed at school led me to needing to share this with my parents, because my mom was very, very involved in the school. And I knew that she was going to find out eventually, and I'd rather it be from me. And I was met with rejection at home as well. And really, truly, the only thing that kept me in school and kept me feeling like maybe I wanted to pursue trying to see what the future would be like for myself was a teacher that was extremely supportive. She reached out to me and said, I see you. I see how much you're struggling. I see how hard this is for you. I know that your mom is also not accepting you. And she just opened her classroom. And it wasn't even just to me that she opened her classroom to. It was really any student that wanted to come to her classroom. She didn't, at the time, because I went to school quite a while ago, not a long time ago, but at that time, it was still really not okay for teachers in South Orange County to have pride flags in their classrooms. But she did what she could to try to make herself seen as the inclusive space that she was. And there are all kinds of students that were in that room, folks that were playing D&D, folks that were just really a lot of times just considered like the weirdos, but I fit right in with them. And that was where I felt most comfortable. That's where I felt accepted. And I went there every day for lunch. She helped me with all of my classes. She helped talk to all of my other teachers about the fact that I was struggling, and I was able to patch back up and graduate on time with my other classmates in my year. And it was just so incredible that it was just such different experiences within the same school district, within the same time, and I was met so differently by this other teacher. And we're still family friends with her and her wife. And she taught me a lot about just existing as a person and as an LGBTQ person is okay. And folks can have normal and boring lives. I love that my life is boring. I don't do a lot of the things that I used to in terms of going out and marching and advocating in the streets. Just being there and being visible and being an ally, I think is going to go a lot farther than you actually think that it's going to go. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that teacher. And I think about her constantly, and I have thanked her over the years for what she did for me and how she helped me.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Hang on. I want to pull up this post from Everyday Therapist. Thank you. One of my high school friends posted on Facebook how kids get lured into socialism by those teachers being the coolest, nicest, most open teachers. I told her about me. Thank you, Everyday Therapist, in these types of situations. Yeah, guys, times like that is a great way to spread the word because, like, here's the deal. Like, you guys talk about all the time, like, you want more people to know my work, and I want more people to know it too. The problem is that I am kind of unwilling to go on shows, and there are shows that don't want me on because they don't know what I'm doing, and they just think I argue with people on the internet because they don't bother to look into what's actually going on and all this stuff. And so, like, I'm kind of, like, retreated into my little hermit hole here where I'm basically like, F everyone, I hate everyone, no one actually listens, like, whatever. But we still do want people to know about what I'm doing. So I need everyone's help. When I post stuff on the Substack, share it out. When I do videos that you find compelling or that you think people need to see, share them. Encourage people to come to the stream. Encourage people to come to Socialism Saturday. Bring a friend. Bring a friend. Maybe everyone should bring a friend to the next Socialism Saturday, and we just see how it goes to show people what's really going on. Because I really do believe that, like, the only way to have people learn about this stuff is to spread it organically through word of mouth. I'm not the best teacher for everyone. I'm not the best teacher for a lot of people, but for people that I am right for, like, I think I do a pretty good job of it. But I need your guys' help to spread the word because I don't want to go on shows where I'm going to get laughed at or told or argued with or like by all these people who don't know what they're talking about because we're so far ahead of them that they can't keep up. And I just don't want to do that. I need to do some self-care too. I need to keep myself sane, but we can all maybe bring a friend sometime. Actually, Paula, there was a US congressman that tweeted the story today, and he's in Tennessee, I think. I forget who it is. He's on my Twitter. I'm sorry, Representative, but there was a congressman that weighed in on it.
Seriously. Thank you for sharing that. Do y'all want to share? Is there anything that kind of comes to mind for you?
Well, Liz is great. I like Liz. Like, Liz's show I would maybe do again if she wanted to. There are a couple shows I'll go on. I'll always go on the Mel K show. I love Mel K. Mel K knows what she's doing. She gets it. There are other shows I would go on as well. There are also a lot of shows that I will not go on because all that's going to happen on those shows is I'm going to get called fat and ugly by a lot of people, and no one is actually going to understand what I'm talking about, and I don't want to put myself through that. So, but there are shows that I would actually go on. I'm just not proactive about it because I'm hermiting. Okay, I'm hermiting. I just want to watch socialism and be left alone. That's it.
I mean, I would say that the most boring thing about me is that I'm trans. But I think to kind of go along with what Brit had said, I think it's really important. I mean, I'm not really sure if, I think that as long as a person within the school is willing and open to supporting and caring, I think that effort and that intention can go a long way. A very, very long way. Even if it is the person may not have like the pronoun usage or the sentence structure or, you know, the practice or whatever the case may be, I think that intention and that effort And just that kid seeing that, okay, there's some compassion here. You may not be able to comprehend, but there's compassion that's there. And oftentimes, as I do train and do talk to people, I always try to emphasize that it's not necessarily about the comprehension, it's about the compassion that really matters. I don't know a lot of things about the LGBTQ plus community because these things, culture is expanding, gender is expanding, these things are expanding and evolving over time, right? Cultures evolve over time. And so I don't know everything, all the small nuances about the LGBTQ community. So I don't fully understand it, but I have compassion. I'm culturally humble, and I come with openness when it comes to nuance and individual people. And I think that's what's most important for people to be an ally or an accomplice when it comes to supporting that kiddo.
Yeah, one of the things that we talk about is like this work is really just about kindness and respect. And when we're working with folks or training, like we didn't do definitions today, we didn't do, because you don't need to know all that stuff. It doesn't, and it changes all the time. And you know, your kids will explain it to you if you ask them to. You know, I don't know what that means. Do you mind telling me what that means to you? You know, and most of the time, I mean, every single time I've ever asked that question, a kid will explain it to me. And it's probably way more nuanced than I would have ever realized, you know? So, yeah, kind of all goes back to that. I know we have some folks here that sent questions in about younger kids, elementary school, that kind of stuff. So I want to just ask if y'all want to speak to that a little bit.
Elementary school?
You know, I think one of the things that we talked about earlier in our session is how we'll have transgender students come in at school when they enroll. So that could be as early as TK, now pre-K, which is 4, right? Can come to public school. And at that point, if we know that we have a transgender student, it's typically because their parent will come and enroll them. So
they're talking about enrolling transgender students at 4 years old. Does anyone think that a kid at 4 years old is capable of understanding? Like, don't a lot of 4-year-olds think they're like dogs and superheroes? And like, I don't have kids, but I imagine that a lot of kids when they're 4 would think that they're like unicorns and mermaids and, you know, whatever cartoon is popular at the time, a Ninja Turtle maybe. I don't know. I don't know what kids like. But that seems a little young. And remember, they're teaching them to affirm everything. Great. Good. Tolkien fan says, I'm sharing your Substack with my cousin. I appreciate that. His wife homeschools their 2 young kids, and they were going to enroll them in next school year. Says he's rethinking it. He should rethink it. That's a really good decision. Do not put your kids in public school. Homeschool them. I know you don't want to. I know it sucks. I know it requires sacrifice. But you gotta homeschool your kids, man. Best gift you will ever give your kids is not putting them through public schools. My son at 3 thought he was Pecos Bill for a year. My daughter was Queen Blue Hair. Yeah, exactly.
And then if that doesn't happen for whatever reason at that time, those kids will typically start coming out around 5th grade. And then, you know, more over time as they enter puberty, right?
Did the she/they just say that kids will start coming out in the 5th grade? Is that what I just heard?
Can come to public school. And at that point, if we know that we have a transgender student, it's typically because their parent will come and enroll them. So, and then if that doesn't happen for whatever reason at that time, those kids will typically start coming out around 5th grade. And then, you know, more over time as they enter puberty.
The kids will start coming out around 5th grade. So that means 10 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old. And that's the typical coming out point for the kids. All right.
Right.
Actually,
but if we can,
let me get the clip. Let's just do the goddamn clip. Let's do it now so I don't have to do it later. Double duty. Thank you. We're going to go back a little bit.
today, we didn't do, because you don't need to know all that stuff. It doesn't, and it changes all the time. And, you know, your kids will explain it to you if you ask them to. You know, I don't know what that means. Do you mind telling me what that means to you? You know, and most of the time, I mean, every single time I've ever asked that question, a kid will explain it to me. And it's probably way more nuanced than I would have ever realized, you know. So, yeah, kind of all goes back to that. I know we have some folks here that sent questions in about younger kids, elementary school, that kind of stuff. So I want to just ask if y'all want to speak to that a little bit. You know, I think one of the things that we talked about earlier in our session is how we'll have transgender students come in at school when they enroll. So that could be as early as TK, now pre-K, which is 4, right? Can come to public school. And at that point, if we know that we have a transgender student, it's typically because their parent will come and enroll them. So, and then if that doesn't happen for whatever reason at that time, those kids will typically start coming out around 5th grade. And then, you know, more over time as they enter puberty, right? So, but if we can kind of
more over time as they enter puberty. Let me just grid that clip. So they're basically talking about like these kids coming out. Why isn't this clip loading? There it is. Okay. So they're talking about like getting this stuff done before the kid has even entered puberty. That doesn't seem like anything could go wrong with that plan, does it? Mac B, thank you for the super chat. Like Mao, they're grooming the kids for the cultural revolution. Indeed they are. Indeed they are.
talk about younger kids and experiences that you might have maybe in your clinical experience about families and kind of what they're going through or things that we could be aware of. Maybe you have some thoughts on that.
For us, when Kay was younger, I mean, for me, this kind of came like a shock to me when they were 10. It was not something we really kind of talked about. So when they shared that with me at 10 years old, my first reaction was like, "You're too young, right? You're too young to kind of." And it's interesting because as an educator, that's not the reaction I would have had to any of my students with a child. It's like, "You're too young," right? So it was kind of like I made the mistake of saying that out loud to my kid, right? So they kind of like hid it away for a couple of years as well. Like they were still feeling the same, but they were performing for me, right? They didn't want to see me disappointed. So, you know, like I you know, when my son said, "Oh, like, you know, I want to buy some like mascara," like I took it as like, "Oh, okay, they don't really feel like this anymore. And like, I'll get you all the mascara and the lipstick and this and that," right? Like I was trying to create something that just wasn't. And I regret doing that, right? I regret being that way. You know, and as a parent, I mean, I don't know if this answers your question, but as a parent, I think you like I said earlier, you're just fearful. You're just fearful that they're not going to be accepted. And this was talked about earlier. Kids are very accepting. You know, it's the adults often that are not so much or don't understand or don't want to understand, or, you know, kids are very accepting. So like a lot of the fears that I had were not real, right? So, and that was kind of like just me. And I think I projected a lot of those fears on my son as well. And then also like thinking back, and this probably doesn't, now I'm going on a tangent, sorry, Lindsay, but you know, as you start sharing with other people too, then you get also their fears, right? So like you start, like as we shared with our families, you know, then it became about my mom worried about, well, what did you do to cause this? Or, you know, and it became a lot of that. So you have to be careful. Like I had to realize, like, I couldn't put this on my kid all the time. Like I was putting a lot on my kid and they had a lot to deal with already. Like, and also take care of me and take care of Nana, you know, take care of how other people felt, right? So like, how do you just normalize this? Because it's normal. There's nothing wrong, you know? And a lot of it too is just kind of like these heteronormative ideas of like what things should be, right? That kind of causes your kid to feel like they don't belong because you're adding to that. So I think for an educator or ally or anyone that works with.
Hang on, got a super chat from Jane. Thank you, Jane. It seems like people come under a spell with this stuff. This is a cult. Listen, there's a lot of reasons I named this show The Cult. I think it's short for the culture war. I like the play of join the cult. I do think my audience is a little bit of a cult. I have aspired, and I think I'm doing a really good job at being a really good cult leader. But I mean, really, like, I do think socialism is a cult. I think that our society has been completely infiltrated and taken over by a cult, where they use the public schools in order to indoctrinate people into a cult. Because it's like brainwashing. It's like they brainwash them with these ideas in a way that, like, even before their brains are developed, so they can't defend themselves from it. And then they put them in this environment where the ideas are being constantly reinforced. They're not allowed to talk to people outside of the belief system. They don't interact with anyone outside the belief system. They demonize everyone outside the belief system. It's a cult. It is a complete cult mentality.
Kids, just like, there's nothing wrong. If you approach it with that lens, there's nothing wrong here. Let's find something to celebrate, to affirm, kids will know. Earlier you asked about, like, good practices and how can we stand for kids? And I was mentioning earlier that the principal was just like so loving. And she didn't know everything, but my kid was willing to, like, gravitate to her because she saw that she was loving. And immediately the principal was like, okay, this is what we're going to do on the first day of school. All the teachers are going to do an activity where they learn the pronouns of the students. And that way we don't just call out your kid, but we'll, like, make it more inclusive. So that was an activity that she purposely used at the first day of school. And it just made such a difference for, like, my kid came back, like, so happy after that first day of school. So it's just like, how do you just be kind?
I have some teachers who've suggested putting pronouns on every worksheet. Just name, date, pronouns, or name, pronouns, date, whatever. Just on every worksheet, so it's kind of ubiquitous. And teachers have shared with me that over time, those pronouns may change, right? Like, they have a student who then changes their pronoun in the course of the year, and it gives opportunity for the educator to go and have those conversations, But it creates that.
So remember they talked yesterday about how, like, they train teachers to kind of look for students writing about this stuff in, like, essays and things. And then if a student writes about maybe they're trans or maybe they're non-binary in an essay, the teacher then follows up with them for, like, a private conversation where they talk about their gender support plan and don't tell the parents about it because the parents don't have a right to know in the state of California. And so now they're saying that they want to compel the students to use pronouns at all times. First off, because that teaches them to use the pronouns as the normal course of doing business. So they're indoctrinating them into that style of language and reminding them to do it all the time on every single paper. Every single paper they write, got to have their pronouns on top, just like the date. But then they're also using it as a way to double check if they need to have a conversation with the student. So it's like, Jamie Sue has been a she, her, she, her, she, her, she, her all of her life, put she, her on the top of every paper. And then one day, Jamie Sue's like 8 years old, and Jamie Sue maybe went to a drag queen story hour or something. And now all of a sudden, Jamie Sue is like she, they. And the teacher goes, aha, we have a new one. Now I have to have a conversation with 8-year-old Jamie Sue that I'm not going to tell their parents about, excuse me. And we're going to talk about Jamie Sue's 8-year-old support plan, gender support plan. And then once we get it all worked out and everyone in the school knows Jamie Sue is now going by she, they, then maybe we'll tell the parents. Maybe, but only if Jamie Sue wants us to. If Jamie Sue at 8 years old doesn't want their parents to know that they're now going by she, they don't have to.
Space where you're inviting openness, right? Thanks for sharing that. Cleo, one of the things that you and I have talked about in the past that I think is really important, I don't know if you all find this at your sites, but one of the things that comes up sometimes is the idea that in school and school-age kids, frequently we have kids who are coming out as non-binary or kids who are coming out as transgender male, right? Maybe more commonly than we have kids who are coming out as transgender female. Does that track with your experience on school sites? And I wonder if you could share some thoughts with us on why that might be.
Yeah, I think it's been an hour just on that alone to talk about that. It's so complex and wrapped up in layers of these big words like patriarchy and misogyny and sexism, right? And I think that when it comes down to it, femininity is policed a lot more than masculinity. And I think that a lot of the kids who are trans femme, who know who they are on the inside, have seen the difficulty that it is to be such a person out loud in these spaces where said thinking is policed so heavily, right? And so it may be harder for them to do so because they know that they can experience a lot of brutality and be bullied, not just by their peers or teachers, but also by their parents. And so I think that when it comes down to it, it's really hard for some people to exist in those spaces because of the heavy policing that it comes with and the potential violence as well that they see along with the rhetoric that there is, right? Because our society is heavy with misogyny and sexism and patriarchy. So how dare you try to denounce who you are and join this other side? How dare you try to take on this thing that we're trying to police, right?
So I wonder, so there's a trans man, there's a trans they, them on the panel that is masculine presenting. So is the trans mask they, them, are they considered to be part of the patriarchy?
I think that's pretty much the shorter response I can give. There's a lot more nuance with that conversation as we talk about the ways which things are done and the agents, the perpetrators, those who benefit, and those who are somewhat protected by this thing called the patriarchy. But it's a heavy conversation with a lot of different factors that kind of interwoven with our community. And I think that for someone to go against that thing out loud, it's very disruptive and can be met with a lot of agitation and aggressive people. And that's my answer on that.
Oh, that's a deep answer. I mean, even the first thing you said, it just kind of blew me away. We have, for example, words to describe maybe cisgender girls who are expressing in traditionally more masculine ways, right? You can be an athletic girl. And even though we do police femininity, I think we've spent a lot of time in our culture trying to give girls more options, more pathways, more, you can be the president. So they keep telling us, believe it when you see it. Yeah. But you can, when I was growing up, it was like, there were tomboys, right? But I don't know a word that would describe a young cisgender boy who is expressing in traditionally female ways. There's not even a word that I can think of.
A sissy is what it would have been called.
That's positive.
I don't say that in derogatory
No, that's actually
ways.
a great, such an important distinction. Exactly. That's exactly right. So it just doesn't even exist as a space. And a lot of what I hear you talking about is about safety or lack of safety.
Exactly. And I don't think this is derogatory. Like, if tomboy isn't derogatory, then femboy isn't derogatory.
So when we look at data and we look at CDC data, because I think another piece to this that comes up for me is there's also this implication that kids assigned female at birth are maybe more, there's like this kind of sort of subtle implication that kids assigned, maybe what this means is that kids assigned female at birth are more likely to succumb to peer pressure. And so this is a fad, right? That there's transgender boys who are coming out as a fad. Do you have any thoughts on that?
That's another one.
I told you it was gonna be an easy question.
I hear that a lot, that right now that there's like this social contagion. I hear things about rapid onset gender dysphoria, which is not real.
It's not a thing.
And I think Crystal kind of touched to it.
Wait. Did they just teach in a federally funded government training that rapid onset gender dysphoria is not a real thing? Did anyone ever else catch that little quibble? Is patriarchy capitalism? Yes, it is, because they believe that capitalism created the patriarchy by putting men in the workplace and women in the home during the unpaid labor of raising the future generation of proletariat workers. Let's rewind. Hang on. I'm going to go back to the beginning of the question. I'm going to clip this. Okay. That should be good enough. If someone says capitalism in this presentation, I'm going to lose my mind. I don't know if we'll quite get there, but if someone does, I'm going to lose my mind.
So it just doesn't even exist as a space. And a lot of what I hear you talking about is about safety or lack of safety. So when we look at data and we look at CDC data, because I think another piece to this that comes up for me is there's also this implication that kids assigned female at birth are maybe more, there's like this kind of sort of subtle implication that kids assigned, maybe what this means is that kids assigned female at birth are more likely to succumb to peer pressure. And so this is a fad, right? That there's transgender boys who are coming out as a fad. Do you have any thoughts on that?
That's another one.
I told you it was gonna be an easy question.
I hear that a lot, that right now that there's like this social contagion. I hear things about rapid onset gender dysphoria, which is not real.
It's not a thing.
And I think Crystal kind of touched to it a little bit of where, you shared that your child came out to you and you said something and your child internalized that and just kind of kept it quiet. That doesn't actually change your child's identity. My parents said things to me that were pretty awful when I came out at 16. And
I got the clip and I want to stop because Benjamin Jackson gifting 20 memberships to the channel. Benjamin, what a king. What a king. I really appreciate it. Congratulations to everyone who got a membership. And I'll tell you this is perfect timing because you guys asked me yesterday, are we going to do a spy stream regarding the Black Lives Matter Week of Action in Education thing next week? And we are. So there will be on Tuesday, I believe at 4 p.m., 3:30 or 4 p.m., something like that. I'll be posting more information about it. We will be doing a member supporter exclusive spy stream for Black Lives Matter and education training that is happening live on Tuesday. And so everyone who just got one of those memberships is going to be able to get a link to it. So I appreciate that, Benjamin. And of course, if you were not lucky enough to get a membership this time, you can pick up your own membership. Or you can head over to my Substack and you can pick up a membership there. If you are a supporter on any of my platforms, whether that be Substack or Locals or Patreon or YouTube channel membership or Twitter subscriptions, you will be invited to that spy stream. So thank you, Benjamin. Big spender. I do appreciate it.
it didn't actually change who I was. I just hid that person from them. And we as trans folks and as people, we hear things from other people and we internalize that, and we if you hear it enough, you believe that about yourself. And so if you hear about yourself enough that you are other, that you are odd, that you are ugly, that you don't deserve things, or that you don't deserve to exist, you internalize that and you believe that to be true. And so you just don't share these things with other people. And so when I hear rapid onset gender dysphoria, that is your perception of your child's identity. That's not actually how your child felt. That is how you saw things, but you don't know, you won't think back about the things that you said offhand or directly to your child about their identity or how they're presenting.
So he went back to rapid onset gender dysphoria and said, when you see things like rapid onset gender dysphoria, you just see it as rapid onset gender dysphoria because that's how you felt. That's not how your child feels. Let's just get that clip real quick. I can add it to the other one.
And so you just don't share these things with other people. And so when I hear rapid onset gender dysphoria, that is your perception of your child's identity. That's not actually how your child felt. That is how you saw things, but you don't know, you won't think back about the things that you said offhand or directly to your child about their identity or how they're presenting. But they'll remember. I can remember some very clear statements that were made to me and how I presented, and I don't think the people that said them have even thought twice about it. And so we carry that with us and we hold on to it, and that just, some people aren't ever able to get out of that, and because they're never met with the love and support that they need in order to be able to come out of that. And so these conversations that I hear about,
this is so emotionally manipulative. Can I just point this out? This is incredibly emotionally manipulative, what's going on right now, because this person is trying to convince people that rapid onset gender dysphoria doesn't actually exist in any real way, and that every single child that says that they're trans is absolutely trans, and we have to believe them and we have to affirm them, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if you question it at all, or you make the mistake of thinking it could be this mythical thing that is rapid onset gender dysphoria, then you are going to permanently F up your child. This person is literally saying, like, and listen, man, I'm not questioning whether or not there are some people that this is real for. I'm really not questioning it. I think that trans people are a real thing. I really do. I don't personally care if people are trans. Makes no difference to me at all. However, I do know that there are also an awful lot of people who think they're trans when they're younger because their friends are trans and they get more attention when they're trans, and it makes them feel less weird to be trans, and they might be autistic and specifically targeted with stuff to make them think that they're trans. And there have been an awful lot of people that at one point thought that they were trans and now no longer think that they are. So I don't know if that's rapid onset gender dysphoria or if it's something else. I have no idea. But I think it's a little irresponsible to say, if you consider other possibilities at all, you are going to permanently F up your child.
people's identities not being real, that's just invalidating their experience, that's
not
invalidating their pain and what they're feeling, and that doesn't actually make it true for the other person. Just means that they're not being given the right to exist as they are. And so I hear that a lot, and it is frustrating for me as a trans person because I can think very clearly about those things, but I really would like for folks to kind of think more about the things that they're saying, because this isn't just impacting trans folks. Gender is a performance that we are all performing in our own way. It's a much.
Gender is a performance that we are all performing in our own way. Where did we hear that before? Where did we hear that before, that gender was a performance that we are just all performing in our own way? We've heard that from Judith Butler, who came up with that idea. We heard that professor at Yale in 2009 say that. We know that Drag Queen Story Hour, the whole reason behind why Drag Queen Story Hour exists is to teach kids that gender is a performance. Isn't that funny. Clip time.
They are. And so I hear that a lot, and it is frustrating for me as a trans person because I can think very clearly about those things. But I really would like for folks to kind of think more about the things that they're saying, because this isn't just impacting trans folks. Gender is a performance that we are all performing in our own way. It's just it's a much more challenging performance for trans people because we have a lot more limitations and rules that we have to follow to be seen and affirmed for the people that we are.
Got it.
And I just want to say to Brit's point, one thing that I'm hearing is that it can be very dangerous and has some pretty serious long-term effects when a child is, when they have their parent or their caretaker instill self-doubt within them. It's very, very powerful, and it just...
Stephanie asked, clarify something for me. Do they literally think biological sex and gender are the same or different? They think they're different. They don't think that biological sex is real. They think that biological sex is a construct. They be like, and so like they do think that sex and gender are different. Biology is irrelevant to them. They don't care. Remember, Stephanie, their entire goal is to abolish the gender binary. They don't want men to exist. They don't want women to exist. They want everyone to think that gender is a performance that can be changed at any time, just like changing an outfit. So they don't care. They don't care about biology. They're trying to queer biology.
It causes serious long-term effects because this person goes on into their adulthood being uncertain about so many different things regarding their life because of that thing that their parents said to them, which instilled so much self-doubt to where they are unsure about where to go, where to find safety, what's real in terms of their friendships. It's a lot of different anxiety within their different circles and aspects of their lives comes up later on in life because of that installation of self-doubt. And so for someone to be told at a young age, it can be really harmful as they go into adolescence, into adulthood, etc. So I really try to help people understand how it can be serious, that type of emotional support, just not being there for that person.
So a lot of themes coming up around safety, right? And around, I mean, something that's coming up with all three of you is how really life-changing it can be to have a supportive person, you know, and we've kind of talked about these safe spaces, right, as they're called now, or you mentioned pride flags in a classroom, right? That's one of the things we talk about is signaling safety, you know, wearing a pin, having a sticker. This is Irvine, that's their sticker. You know, having those kinds of things, and you're basically saying to a community that is vulnerable and traditionally ignored, which means marginalized, right? Hey, when we say we care about our students, we mean specifically you also. We care about you specifically as well, right? There's other school districts that have done transgender flag hearts, those kinds of things to really kind of bridge that gap and try and open that conversation with those students. So even if your district is not doing this, if you're in a position to make this possible for your district, I highly encourage it. If that's not really your role, you can do it in your space and in your room and be that teacher, you know, or that GSA advisor, you know, those folks that where folks know and the kids talk, so they know who they can talk to and who they can tell, right? Another thing, not to belabor this point, but this has come up a lot recently, is when we do identity support planning, thinking about our own bias around gender, misogyny, patriarchy. You know, I know those are, like you said, big words, and we don't have time to totally go into that stuff, but what I can tell you in practice is that, is there a difference in the way that your school reacts to a transgender boy using the boys' locker room or going on an overnight trip, and the way they react to a transgender girl using the girls' locker room and going on an overnight trip. Because we get those calls all the time, and there's a difference. And from my experience, what I see is, and then I want to throw it to you all for comments, is that when we have a transgender boy using the boys' facilities, people are going on overnight trips. People are concerned that particular student might be at risk. They're concerned about that student's safety. When we have a transgender girl using the girls' locker room, the girls' facilities, and going on overnight trips, people are concerned about the safety of those around her.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Which is, and all the things that come of that are extremely discriminatory. Somebody say that? Yeah, discriminatory. Like if, you know.
So someone asked earlier, do they acknowledge the reality of biological sex? What we just heard should be an indication to you that they do not acknowledge the reality of biological sex in any way. Because this person is like, I just can't understand why if a boy says they're a girl, it doesn't make sense to just have them changing in the girls' locker room all of a sudden and going on trips with the girls and all this stuff. I just can't imagine why anyone would have a problem with that. Can you guys imagine why anyone might have a problem with that? Let's go back. Sorry, gotta clip it. There's a whole, I knew there was a preamble. I knew it was going somewhere. One sec, just getting my clippy clip thing set up.
You know, those folks that where folks know, and the kids talk, so they know who they can talk to and who they can tell, right? Another thing, not to belabor this point, but this has come up a lot recently, is when we do identity support planning, thinking about our own bias around gender, misogyny, patriarchy. You know, I know those are, like you said, big words, and we don't have time to totally go into that stuff, but what I can tell you in practice is that, is there a difference in the way that your school reacts to a transgender boy using the boys' locker room or going on an overnight trip, and the way they react to a transgender girl using the girls' locker room and going on an overnight trip? Because we get those calls all the time, and there's a difference. And from my experience, what I see is, and then I want to throw it to you all for comments, is that when we have a transgender boy using the boys' facilities, people are going on overnight trips. People are concerned that particular student might be at risk. They're concerned about that student's safety. When we have a transgender girl using the girls' locker room, the girls' facilities, and going on overnight trips, people are concerned about the safety of those around her. Does that make sense? Which is, and all the things that come of that are extremely discriminatory. Somebody say that? Yeah, discriminatory. Like if, you know, so having to kind of work through that with staff. I don't know if y'all want to say anything about that. Has that come up for you at all, Crystal?
What it makes me recall is when Katie first started middle school, we initially, well, Kate wanted to just use a restroom by themselves. That was separate from the.
Hang on, I'm gonna stop that clip because I think I got what I needed, and if I didn't, I can go back and make another clip later. Let me just wait for that one to save. Let me just wait for that to save. There we go. Let me see. Got a question from Prometheus. Carlin, as a psychologist, you might be the best person to ask. Why is it that people completely lower their guard to males to adopt femininity or why is it that people completely lower their guard to males to adopt femininity or perform? I don't think people do lower their guard. I don't accept the premise of your question. I mean, I don't want to make it seem like I think that all men are dangerous. I don't think all men are dangerous, but And I think that the vast majority, like, I think that, like, normal trans, like, I think in general, like, I'm not afraid of sharing the bathroom with a trans woman. I'm just not. I don't think that most people would, it would be an issue, but it does, like, it does bother me when it comes to a young boy who's, I mean, maybe they put them on puberty blockers, I guess, but, like, maybe they didn't and their hormones are raging, sharing a locker room with girl, like, that bothers me. And it quite frankly bothers me to think of a young girl sharing a locker room with a whole bunch of boys. I think that actually could be really traumatic for the girl who, if they're identifying as, like, a trans boy, and all of a sudden they're in the boys' locker room, like, that is just, like, a situation that is rife for error for me. Like, that kid's gonna get bullied. That kid's gonna get harassed. Like, I know what it's like to be a tomboy around a whole bunch of boys, right? Like, it's not always the most fun thing in the world. So I don't know. I don't really accept the premise of the question, I guess, but let's see how they answered this.
From the boys' locker room. And so we did that. And actually, like, I was happy about that. Like, I felt safer. And then when Case said, I want to use the boys' locker room, my first instinct was like, no, absolutely not. Like, what if you get hurt? What if someone, like, tries to hurt you, right? So, like, all these things came up. And I actually talked to Lindsay. I have a great support system. And, one of the things Lindsay coached me or helped me think about is, like, well, just, have what's wrong? Like, what are you worried about? And I walked through what I was worried about and said, well, have a conversation with the principal and talk about, like, how we might talk about those safeties. Have you had an opportunity to tour the boys' locker room? Have you had an opportunity to pick the best locker room? Do you want to be closer to the PE teacher, further away? All these things that I didn't even think to ask, right? So, when I approached the school about moving them, they were concerned right away too. And you could tell right away that are you sure? Because we have a great, the way things are working are fine. It's like, well, no, this is what my child wants. So I let my kid have a conversation, and I sat and we were together with the assistant principal, and they said, oh, I already have a plan. Like, I have a friend in that class and we're good. As long as I'm by him, like, I'm fine. So we escalated the level of concern, and it was a non-issue at the end of the day. Like, there was no issue. And Lindsay says this often, is kids are the best assessors of their own, like, safety, right? They know what feels safe and what doesn't. So, like, a lot of times we have these adult conversations and we forget to involve the kids or even ask them what they need, right? So, like, once we were able to just, like, get out of their way, everything was fine and it was a non-issue.
I'm glad you brought up the non-issue, and then Lindsay was talking about those fears, because there is no documentation of actual incidents of those fears. It's all been about creating barriers and utilizing fear to do that. So there actually is no evidence of those safety issues per se, as far as, the reverse or the safety factor.
Yeah, in fact, what the data does show is when we have more restrictive bathroom and facilities policies, kids are more at risk for assault and harm than when we let folks, choose what feels most comfortable and safe. So, yeah. So, and in 10 years of doing this, we've just never had an issue. Never had an issue of student safety when students are supported in using the facilities that they feel most safe to use. Okay, so I want to ask about some of our, pre-submitted questions, but we had a lot of questions about parents' perspective. And I know you've said some things and you've touched on some things, and I want to highlight one of the things that you said. As a parent myself, it's very scary. It can be very scary, right? Like, this is the thing that has come up a lot that you've talked about even just today, is that there's a lot of fear because you want to protect your child. I've been doing this work for a long time. And I have a 4-year-old who is diverse in their expression, in their gender expression.
Of course they do.
And
of course.
so I've had to figure that out over the last couple of years and lean on some of the folks who've been there for me. And this is a totally different side of things, right? As having all of this knowledge and doing all of this work and then having my own child and being like, oh my gosh.
I'm sure it was just a coincidence.
Right? It can be really scary. It can be really scary because you want to just support your kids and say, yes, do whatever you want to do. The world is beautiful. And then you also want to protect them. And something you said earlier, Crystal, about like every person that you kind of let see your true family or you came out to, right? You have to deal with their feelings.
By the way,
one of the things that came up.
I didn't notice this yesterday, but did you notice the trans flag heart pin that the she, they is wearing?
For us, because ours is so young still, is that I had to make myself notice positive experiences. So like, say my little one would go out in public dressed how they want to dress, which is very gender nonconforming. And we would go to the store and say somebody at the store would say something affirming and beautiful and wonderful and nice. And then I would have to go, okay, I have to notice that experience and go, okay. And each time take a breath and go, okay, this is going to be okay. Because the alternative is me saying things to my child that they might be saying in your office in 25 years, right? And I'm not willing to do that, I guess. So these are the things I think that our parents are struggling with. And when our parents come to school, and say, hey, how can you help us? It's scary. Crystal, can you speak to this idea of like not wanting to make waves or not wanting to be a burden?
It takes a lot of, it takes a toll to ask for anything, right? Like when we would ask, like, can you talk to us? And it's like, oh, like, I'm not sure if they want to talk to us, and like we're bothering them. The principal's so busy, and this is just one kid, and right. And then it's like, okay, can you talk to us about the restroom? Can you talk to us about what teachers are allies? Like everything just felt kind of like we were bothering, versus like, so I had that experience, and it just, like my kid felt that even more so than I did, right? Like we just felt like
we should make a capitalism flag.
It's fine.
We can make that.
You tell us that we can't change the email, then we won't change the email. It's fine. We'll just let it be. So like just so much misinformation about what's right and what's not. And then you go online and you try to figure it out by yourself. And I'm an educator and I was supposed to know, right? So that like having that experience, and I purposely put myself in a role where I was in charge of these things now, right? It's because now I knew better. So as an educator, as an administrator, I was able to like, when principals called to ask questions, I was able to say like, oh, this is the law. This is how we act. And this is a good practice. What was your original question?
We love where you're going.
I know. You kind of were going into my next one. I was like, yes, perfect. I'm not even sure I remember my original question. Basically talking about how it feels to like this idea of being a burden.
Yeah, and as an administrator, I was able to sit in on many activities support plans and hear from parents who were also felt like they were burdening the system, right? When we started high school as well, I went to the orientation before school started and had asked someone, like, hey, like we would like to go through an identity support plan. And the person I talked to said, we don't have that here. Right. And it's like, oh, well, we probably do. And I said, and then right away go back to Lindsay. Lindsay, what do I do? And Lindsay says, offer them this identity support plan, email them and say, okay, you don't have one. Like, can I use this one? And I didn't hear back for a while. So you go through that like ladder of inference, like they're not supportive, they don't like us, like I need to change districts, right? Like that's where I went. And it's just that I talked to the wrong person. Later on I talked to the right person and they're like, actually, we do have an identity support plan. And actually this is the process and, and this is who can, let's meet next week, right? So it makes you think about like how these tools are only as good if you put them in the hands of many people, right? Like, right, there's so many great tools that you just don't know about. So it's like, how do you make sure that these tools are like, that all counselors know about these tools, that all administrators know about these tools? Because one day a kid's gonna walk in without their parent and need something, and they're gonna get the wrong information and they're just gonna let that sit for the rest of their lives. Versus, where I was able to go back and say, well, actually, we did this, we need this, and then finally get connected to the right person. So just that like, how do you even remove the need for kids to ask for things that they don't even know about? And just make it part of the way we do business and part of the way that we show we care.
Right. And I think one of the things that we always talk about is we can have all these great resources and tools, but if the student doesn't know about it, what's the point? Mm-hmm. Right. So when we have districts who have Instagram pages about, for this stuff and really are reaching out or putting it in student agendas and parent handbooks and all these places so that there's visibility about the resources that are offered, then, that's how we can, and in your GSAs, you have a focus group right there in your GSAs.
Oh yeah.
And those kids, you have kids who aren't coming to your GSAs, but they're going to hear about it from their peers, right? So when we think about identity support planning, I know you're familiar with this process a little bit from your work, and we talked about what it is a little bit, but just providing an opportunity to have conversation with a student, either by themselves confidentially or with the family, like Crystal's kind of referring to work with the school so that the school knows how to best support the student. That's kind of what we're here talking about today. And I wonder if the two of you could speak to what that might have been like, or things that maybe we can open the door of conversation about that might feel supportive to kids in that space. I'm guessing there was no identity support plan process when you were in school.
When did this actually come about? Like it said May, or whatever the email said that you guys passed the bill in May. When did they actually start?
Hang on, we got a question from Reading with Dee Dee. Do you think kids whose parents seem to push this ideology onto them will turn on their parents someday should they choose to leave the cult? I mean, how many of us had our parents do shitty things to us in childhood that made us really pissed off at our parents later? And those things probably didn't involve making permanent changes to our body. So I personally certainly have issues with many of the things that my parents did when they raised me, because they f***ed with my head something fierce. But it was all emotional abuse, right? Now imagine, and it took me a long time to forgive my parents for the shit that they put me through, right? Now imagine that not only have you been emotionally effed with by your parents, but the emotional effery resulted in you going on gender-affirming hormones and cutting off perfectly healthy body parts and permanently sterilizing yourself. I would be pretty effing pissed. That's a lot. So do I think that the ones whose parents have pushed this on them through like some sort of like Munchausen's by proxy sort of thing are going to be pissed at their parents later? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I think it would backfire big time.
Oh, it's been over 10 years. Yeah, but every school district is adopting it at different rates and different plans, and sort of everyone's kind of, there's no there's no law on how it's supposed to happen, right?
And in Orange County, the CGP doesn't have like a uniform thing that everyone is supposed to get.
No, and in Santa Ana, we're actually ahead of the game, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you just adopted it in May?
No, well, I just can make myself part of everything.
We adopted a board policy in May that specifically protects transgender, gender non-binary, gender non-conforming kiddos.
Hang on, Rottweiler's got a great question. Do you think detransitioners would become allies against this queer Marxist takeover? I mean, some of them already have. But I'll tell you this too, like, the detransitioners, at least the ones that I've heard about, they're pretty emotionally messed up. Like they have a lot of problems, and I'm not trying to mean that to like put them down or anything. I actually, it's such a sad thing. And some of the conservative groups that are trotting around the detransitioners are actually effing them off even more, because like a lot of the detransitioners, they have drug and alcohol problems. They are emotionally stunted. Like they have been effed with, and a lot of them are still really young. We're talking about like in their late teens, early 20s, and they're being trotted around by conservative groups all over the country, and they're being taken out to places where they have access to things. And so like can they be allies? Yes, but I've actually been pretty disturbed at some of the things that I've heard about how conservative like political groups are using these kids and actually making their emotional problems worse. So I personally like, could they be great allies? Yes. But not if it makes what is already going to be a challenging experience worse for them. Like I personally would feel badly about doing that. Like I think, and again, I don't mean any offense by this. I really, really don't. I think Chloe Cole is going to be effed up. I think the constant trotting around of, and I think she, and like, you don't know what happens behind the scenes. Chloe Cole is really young. Really, really young. And she's being paraded around all the time as the poster child. Like, this is going to be a problem for her. And I don't know if it's that the allure of fame or money or whatever that is allowing that to happen, but I would not want to be involved in that level of shilling, because you're effing up young kids that were already done dirty by the adults around them, and that to me feels very, very, very gross.
But identity support planning was around before then.
Gosh.
Yeah, we're just getting specific language in SAUSD to solidify that.
So as you see people come into your practice, families come in, and are you still like available to families when they first kind of come into the practice? Is that still?
Yeah. So I'm still, our team has expanded, thankfully. And so it's myself, and we have a principal advent worker that is helping with families as they're navigating things. The question of trying to think about what that would have been like for me, I think things would have been a lot different had I had those as options as a young person. I probably would have come out a lot sooner, because I didn't start my transition until I was in my 20s. And so it was actually a partner that I'm married to that was like, I think you might be trans. And I had no idea what that was. And so I was just seeing what it's like now for students it has been so, like, a lot of the work that I do for community education with schools specifically is like on my own time. And when I hear about how that is helping students, it is why I have continued to do that work. Because I hear from these students of like, oh yeah, I just came out to my school and they helped me with this, they helped me with that. I'm going to be on the boys soccer team, or I'm going to be on the girls swim team. And it is so different. And especially at the school that I went to school at, hearing how their experience is so different from my own is exactly what I wanted. That is the work that I have just been trying to do, because that is just has been my life goal. The saying, like, you reap what you sow, I don't think you always do. A lot of times you don't actually get to enjoy what you planted when it's for the people behind you. And that has been what it feels like for students. And so these support plans are so important to make students aware that it's there for them as an option, so that they understand, like, these are my options. I'm not limited to these things. I'm allowed to take up space, because that's something that I know that my family struggled with. I know that I struggled with for a very long time. And these support plans are, no, you are here to take up space, and we're going to help you do that. And I just think that this work should only continue. It should only expand, because our community is expansive and we deserve to have all the space that we need to exist authentically.
Right? Yes, we do. And really, that's just about equity, just having equitable access, right? Cleo, I know you've talked about kind of, you see these kids when they become adults and they come in for treatment of, trying to kind of sift through some of the things that they weren't able to really process in their developmental stages where they should have been processing it. And I just want to see if you have anything that you want to share with us on kind of the what helps, what hurts thing, and how we can change things earlier to provide more helpful developmental pathways for those kids.
I have actually taken on a few cases for kiddos, but they usually are the ones that are really severe and acute. Parents who are like, hey, like my kid really needs support because, in the last 6 months they've been to the hospital.
Hang on, super chat from Rottweiler, appreciate it. That's the problem. If only there was reassurance for detransitioners to be treated and platformed with dignity. Yes, cons use them as props while bad-mouthing them before discarding them. That's exactly it. Listen, like, I have a little bit of experience with being used as a political prop by conservatives and then dropped as soon as I became inconvenient. I have a little bit of experience with this. And I experienced it when I was 40. And I can't imagine going through something like that. And I was fully bought into it, man. I really was. I thought, like, I'm doing the right thing. I'm helping people. This is like everyone's on the same team. Because when it happened to me, I was so, and again, I was 40 years old. And I was completely new to this space. This wasn't something I ever planned. This wasn't something I was involved with, right? And so when it happened to me, it was like, I really thought, and I was actually told by people, I was told they'll protect you. If you get canceled, they'll protect you. I was told that on like multiple occasions. And so I was like, all right, it's the right thing to do. It's important, save the country, blah, 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 like whatever. I was so naive about how this whole game works and about how basically no one that's involved in politics actually cares about any of the things they claim to care about. Can you imagine being a teenager or young 20-something and being thrown into this thing where you are put in front of millions and millions of people as a prop after you have already been emotionally effed with to the point where you cut off perfectly healthy body parts? Like, and you haven't fully resolved that yet because there's no possible way it could be fully resolved? I mean, I was clinically depressed for like a year when this happened to me. People can go back and watch my videos. Like you can see me during like when I started realizing what had been done Like, you can go back and watch videos where I was fucked up in 2021. I was fucked up for a good bit of 2022. Like, and I experienced all of this insanity when I was older. And I wasn't trotted around like a science project like the detransitioners are. And so it's just like, man. And there's no consideration given to like their mental health, because conservatives pride themselves on not caring about anyone's feelings, even though all they have is feelings. Like they're completely built on feelings, right? They only see these kids as a prop. So I feel really bad for them. I think that their parents should be doing a better job of protecting them, if I'm honest about it. Maybe their parents are blinded by the money and like, oh, everyone wants to talk to my kid and blah, 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 and we're saving the country and we're ending gender ideology. And I'm not saying that they aren't important, because I think that they are important, but at what cost, I guess, is the thing. Because they're going to get discarded at some point. And they'll be replaced. Someone told me the other day, someone on one of my community Zooms told me, they were like, did I tell this story? Did I tell this story on this stream? I don't think I told this story on this stream. I told it in a Twitter space, and then I posted a clip of it. And I swear this relates back to what Rottweiler is saying, but let me tell this story. A couple weeks ago, Fox News reached out to me. And do you guys know how I have been trying to get Fox News to cover anything that's actually important that we uncover, and they won't do it? And it's just like they don't understand why it's important. They don't understand. They won't do it. Blah, 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 blah. Or sometimes they book me and then they cancel it and blah, 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 like whatever. So I had finally given up on Fox News. And then I got an email from Fox News a couple weeks ago, before the New Hampshire primary was over. And they said to me, Carlin, do you know any other Democrats that left the Democratic Party after they went to a Trump rally? Do you know anyone else? Do you know any other former Democrats that we can trot out? They didn't say this exactly, but do you know any other former Democrats that we can trot out as the new Democrat that left the Trump rally? And I was so blown away by this. I was like, you assholes have ignored every single important story that I've given you, but you have the nerve to email me to ask me to replace myself because it's presidential election season again? Really? Really? Eat a dick, Fox News. Truly and sincerely. Eat a dick. And then someone told me in my community Zoom the other day that all of a sudden they're seeing all these stories pop up of all of these Democrats who are leaving the Democratic Party. Oh my word. It's almost like I was a massive cog in a machine. But no one's ever going to replace me. Not really. People still remember that, which is crazy. It's why I have it in the intro video. It's like people really do still remember that. But I was just like, man, it really is. They are a cog in a machine. And these detransitioners are a cog in a machine. And I'll tell you what, once you realize that you were used as a political fucking pawn, you guys thought I was mad at the Democrats. Like, there is a reason that I made shitting on Republicans and conservatives into an art form. And it happened after I realized just how badly they had used me as a political pawn. And I think the detransitioners that are being trotted around all over the country are going to feel exactly the same way about it, to be honest. And I think their parents should be protecting them from it. Never get involved in politics, guys. Never get involved. They do not care about any of the issues that they claim to care about. They do not care about you. They will not protect you. They will throw you to the wolves as soon as you are no longer useful to them, or as soon as you stop saying the talking points that they've given you to say. Never, ever get involved in politics. It will F up your life.
Twice. And I can't help but say yes to help that kid, because there has to be some space in which that kid does feel safe and protected. And I think that it can be hard for some parents to bring their kid into therapy because some parents want things to go back to normal. And some parents want to figure things out, in which case I say, come into therapy yourself, not your kiddo. But I would say the thing that I try to tell parents whenever I do have rare cases is that my only agenda here is to make sure that your kid lives into adulthood. That is my only agenda here. And if we can collaborate on that, then awesome. But other than that, I'm going to affirm your kid. And it's less about this person who has suicidal ideation silo, right? It's interconnected. It's because this person does not feel safe at home and or at school. So how can we get everyone involved to be a part of that care team? And I think it really is important to be part of that care team. And I say that because that's kind of like what I'm bringing into the medical space, right? Yeah. They're the care team full circle holistically. They're the care team that help the kiddo while they're in hospital. There's the continuity of care, which I'm a part of. And then there's trying to get the kiddo back into the school and back with their peers so that way they can graduate and live out whatever dreams they want to dream, right? And so we kind of need a lot of different people to work as a team. And I think it's so important to get administrators as well as staff on board with helping support the kid, give more compassion, maybe a little more attention. Sometimes people see things, ask questions. I mean, I think that it sounds like a lot of folks here do care and want to be a part of that care team.
Yeah, I want to highlight Prometheus's chat because this is something that I've actually been like very conscious of with my channel because like Prometheus says, I'm glad I found this channel and have disconnected from conservative rage bait. It's quite liberating seeing things without a bias designed to piss me off. This is something I've been very, very, very conscious of. And it all goes back to when I got clinically depressed, basically, over like because like I was like in the fucking machine, right? And it was like I had to be pissed off about everything and it was bad. And I think like I've been really conscious of this since I got, hang on, I'll put that back up so people know what I'm talking about. I got really conscious of this, and I know we're not talking about the training anymore. The training's almost over. It's actually not as crazy as I thought it would be, but we'll watch till the end. I became really conscious of this when my Twitter account got permanently banned. Because for people who don't know, like I got permanently banned on Twitter for sharing a government email address. And then I got in a big fight with Twitter and it took a month and I had to get 3 letters from the state of New Hampshire basically saying, you moron, she shared a publicly available government email address for them to reinstate my account. But it was actually like the best thing that ever happened to me because when my main Twitter account got permanently banned, it disconnected my other Twitter accounts because I have like 8,000 Twitter accounts, but it disconnected my other Twitter accounts from the algorithm of my main account. And all of a sudden, like this whole new world opened up that wasn't based on outrage porn and clickbait, and people were happy and they weren't like angry all the time and they weren't just rage tweeting. And it was like the algorithm disconnected from all the other Twitter accounts that I had. And I was like, I feel a lot better. I'm pissed off that my Twitter account got banned, but like I felt a lot better. And like, so when I came back from that, like I really consciously made a lot of changes because I didn't want to get sucked into that again because I don't think I realized how bad it was. And I was addicted to it. Again, you go back and watch some of my videos from 2021, 2022, I was fucking pissed. I was pissed off all the time. And I was clinically depressed and I dealt with a lot of bullshit. And I'm glad that I like lived that I'm glad like I lived that authentically online, to be honest, because I want other people to see that this is like life is a process, man. You're not a perfect person. but I'm really glad that I was able to kind of like reevaluate how I was doing things. And I felt I was so pissed off when my account got banned, but it also like it gave me a 1-month detox. So it was like when I came back, I like all of that shit had kind of left my system. And so then I had no desire to get involved in the bullshit again. And it's like a whole new world. And I look at especially like the so-called like anti-woke community on Twitter, and I just don't understand them. They're like, well, I do understand, but like I don't, because they're pissed off all the time. I don't think their tactics are effective. They're constantly attacking people. They're constantly canceling people. They're constantly canceling people on their own goddamn team. And it's like, what are you all doing? Like, you're working yourselves up into a tizzy on a daily effing basis. And so, like, I've always been really conscious of, since then especially, and you'll see this in how I started with my Substack. I started my Substack, I think, in 2021 or something like that, but I really started making a concerted effort to do it at the end of 2022. And that's been like what I've been building ever since. And I didn't want to do outrage porn. I didn't want to do clickbait. And I made like an effort for that. Now it hinders the effectiveness of my content going viral, but I think it's just a better way to do it. And I think it's a more responsible way to do it. Like, I would much rather, I think there's an audience for presenting information in a nuanced way that's not clickbait, that's not outrage porn, that just shows what's going on and saying, here is what's happening. Here are the receipts for what's happening. You can share it or you can ignore it. Like, whatever. And I think it helps us to see things more clearly. And I think we're probably all a lot healthier for it. So anyway, let's wrap up, guys. We got we got 7 minutes left of this training. Please make sure to mount the like button for me if you have not already. Please make sure you subscribe on whatever platform you're watching on. As a reminder, tomorrow is apparently Friday, which means we'll be doing happy hour at 5 p.m. And of course, we do Socialism Saturday on Saturdays at 6 p.m. But let's wrap things up for today. I might do a different stream later, but I'm going to tell you about it in a minute. Maybe.
It comes to the kiddo, which is awesome. And, you know, administrators can be everywhere at once, so it is really, really hard. But I think that as long as information is available and maybe even circulated often, I think that it can really be powerful because you don't know what you don't know. And so folks who do go to these conferences, do go to these panels and these meetings, it's so important for us to share this information so that other people can have this information as well and continue to provide more support throughout the school. Because there may be some kid who's not saying something and their frustration, their anger, their sadness may be coming out in other ways that isn't quite understood. And so I think just kind of being openly affirming and openly supportive by wearing things like a badge or a sticker or the case may be can let the child know that you are safe. You're a safe person. You are an affirming person. I can come and talk to you if I need to come and talk to you to maybe help a space that I don't have at home, right? Because some kids spend more time at school than at home for various reasons. But
thank you for that. And this is one of the things that we talk about all the time is signaling safety. Sometimes it's like people want to know like what's the magic thing to do, and I think it's actually so simple that we sometimes miss it. And it's really just being kind and respectful to everybody. Like it really just comes down to that and offering that, and kids see that. They see if you have, because again, they're evaluating risk, right? So if you have a sticker or a badge or something on your computer, they notice that. And whether or not they come and share their story with you, you know, they're going to hang out in your classroom, they're going to hang out in your office, they're going to know that this is a place that is safe, which is so crucial. I mean, the story that you shared, Brit, is almost like saved your life. This one teacher, you know, got you caught up on credits, you said, just having this person to provide support and having these places where we can be affirmed and really just kind of loved for who we are can help us become more open and positive about who we are. We're out of time, but I wanted to, Crystal, give you an opportunity real quick if you wanted to share anything about kind of like if there's something that you want us to walk away with, you know, what would it be?
So as I was like navigating how to be a parent and how to be a better educator, I was going through my doctorate program. I'm on my last year of my doctorate program. And when I first started, I was going to focus on professional learning for new teachers. And that quickly changed to more inclusive practices for LGBTQ students.
Of
So
course.
I'm on my last year thinking about how do we bring identity support plans to the hands of many. So I'll be working on my study this year to train counselors and make sure that they have time to just feel comfortable doing the process. Because I think sometimes, like, if you just treat it like a checklist, that's not going to help a kid, right? But if you treat it like a loving conversation and like really show that you're invested, like that's going to make all the difference, right? So like, how do we get people to know about this tool, to practice it, to use it, and then share it with like as many people as possible? So I'm really excited about that work because I think that this is going to make a difference for like all the kids that we interact with, right? So just please share, you know, and then invite Lindsay's to your school because like this is such a great resource, and it can't just like, you can't just depend on one or two people to do it.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to what Cleo was saying and what we've been talking about the village, right? We're all part of the village, and we're literally at the village. Thank you to the village for hosting us. Did y'all want to add anything before we wrap up and let these folks go? I don't want to cut you off. There's something that you want them to walk away with that you haven't already said. I want to give you the opportunity.
Power of an apology will go a long way. You will make mistakes. You will misgender people. You will make assumptions about people. You'll do things wrong. And I grew up with adults not apologizing to me. And so it's really important to be an adult that apologizes and to have your apology with actionable change and just differences. So just it's okay to make mistakes. Just use that as an opportunity to apologize, educate yourself, and move forward in an affirming way.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that kids understand vibes. And so if you have a warm vibe or open vibe, like that, okay, this person's cool. Like I may not have seen that rainbow or that pronoun sticker, but they feel cool. And so I'm gonna talk to them about this thing that I can't talk to with anyone else. So I would say kids know vibes.
For sure. All right. Well, do y'all mind sitting here with us for the next 5 minutes while we kind of wrap up? But before we go to that, can we just thank them and appreciate them for sharing with us today? Just thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And then as Heidi and I want to wrap up with you, yes, we can come to your site. We would love to. We'd love to help. Feel free to call us, email us.
Anna,
and then Heidi, you have this slide here.
I feel like this slide really connects with the panel. I just want to thank the panel for all the messages today. And I think it really connected to our theme today, just meeting the moment. And when you have those moments with individual students, never underestimate how much that moment of compassion and kindness, means to that student and the work you're doing. So again, as we said this morning, thank you for being here for this. And thanks for the panelists for reinforcing that message that we can never have too much kindness, or we always have enough time for that special moment, for that individual who really needs us. But this work saves lives. That's why we're all here today. And I'm sure you all believe that. That's why you took the time to be here, because we all know in education, we're all balancing lots of different responsibilities, lots of hats. So thank you for prioritizing that time. And, this is more than, we did provide you a small segment on the laws just to give you that information, but this is not about laws. Equality is not just about passing laws, but it's also about the struggle within our hearts and our minds and being there for the community as well as our individual students. That's where it counts. And so we just want to thank you for being the hearts and the minds of our students. So thank you very much.
All right. Well, I guess that's that. Oh. That is Lindsay's organization, is Kinder Futures. So Kinder Futures was paid by the federal government to deliver this training. Not as crazy as it could have been, not as crazy as I've seen. We've got a couple clips, but really, I mean, honestly, it could have been a lot worse. I think the training we watched yesterday was actually a lot worse than the one we watched today. But why are they keeping it unlisted? Like, why is that unlisted? I thought it was going to be much worse just because it was unlisted. But you know what? We're happy when we find trainings that aren't that bad. Like, if we can reach the level of like, that wasn't that bad, that's actually like a good thing. So why wasn't the panel involved in the, because that was just the way they set up the training. I don't think there's anything nefarious about it. Like a lot of trainings are like that, where you'll have like like an educational portion and then you'll have a panel portion. I always hated doing panels. I don't feel like panels are an effective way to teach, but whatever. All right, guys, that's all we have for right now, but I might, and I am emphasizing might, I might do a stream later, because did anyone hear about this Ron DeSantis influencer that basically got accused on Twitter yesterday of like liking kids like a lot? Like a lot. Well, that Ron DeSantis influencer did a Twitter space earlier today to defend his good name, and I want to listen to it. Yes, Tim Cool. Exactly. I want to listen to Tim Cool's Twitter space. I listened to part of it, like, while it was going on, but I actually want to listen to the whole thing because he's pissed and he's talking about suing everyone, and he's talking about suing Laura Loomer just for sharing a tweet and all this stuff. And there's like inter-DeSantis drama and all this stuff. And so I was like, oh man, I might do a late night stream just to listen to this Twitter space, but I have other things I need to do first, and I'm taking a class with Joshua later, and my class with Joshua is going to be prioritized over a Tim Cool stream, but I might do it later. If I don't do it later, I might do it like over the next couple days. We'll have to see, because I really do want to listen to it. So that might be coming up later, but I'm making no promises. I'm making no guarantees. And I don't want anyone to stay up late, like in anticipation, because I promise this is not going to be a productive stream at all. So I want to encourage everyone who goes to bed at a reasonable hour to just go to bed. You don't need to participate in this one. But I might not do it too. It just kind of depends on some stuff, because I have other stuff I need to do today. So we'll see. I don't know. Make sure you're getting notifications just in case. But if I don't do the stream later, then I will do it. Then I will be back for happy hour at 5 p.m. tomorrow, where we will watch Awoke training and we'll have beer and it'll be awesome. And I appreciate you guys. And that's all I have for right now. Take care. Have a good one, guys. We'll see you.